everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy True Crime Tuesday. For today's case, we are going to be discussing the co-ed killer Edmund Kemper III. Before we get into everything, I do have a few content warnings about this video, and I do want to issue an apology for my video last week. I know some people were not able to watch it because I did put an age restriction on it. I have my reasons for putting an age restriction on it. I don't feel like anybody, because you never know who's watching these videos. And I don't know, well, I mean, I know the age of some of my viewers, but it's a lot of reasons why I did put an age restriction on it. I'm thinking about taking it off, honestly, but I think it's best that I leave it on there. So if you were unable to catch that video, I do apologize. But today's case, a lot of content warnings. We are going to be talking about, I guess you can say child abuse, cruelty to animals, violence against women, various types of sexual assault, necrophilia. I think that's about it. Yeah, so if any of those topics are a trigger for you, I highly suggest that you do not watch this video. Maybe I will catch you in next Tuesday's video. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into this case. Okay, my neighbors are being ratchet. Anyway, hello you guys, welcome back. Today we are just going to get right into this story. This might be a long one, I'm not sure yet, but we're just gonna move through it like we always do, and let's go ahead and get into it. Edmund Emil Kemper was born on December 18th of 1948, making him a Sagittarius. My first Sagittarius. I'm so excited about that because y'all are crazy. He was born in Burbank, California to Edmund Kemper II and Carnell Kemper. He was the middle child of 3 children, and he was the only boy. He absolutely adored his father. Like, his father was his best friend. And it was just Big Ed and Little Ed just hanging out with each other, you know, real cute. But unfortunately, this would be short-lived because Edmund II and Carnell would end up getting divorced. So following the divorce in 1957, Ed and his 2 sisters and his mom would end up moving from Burbank to Helena, Montana. And this would change Ed as a person. He was described as a very bright child, but he also has some sociopath traits. He unfortunately suffered from 2/3 of the McDonald triad, so he would cause harm to animals and he would set fires, and those are like the 2 biggest signs of someone being a sociopath. When it came to him harming animals in particular, he would harm cats. Like, he would take the little stray cats in the neighborhood. It was 2 cats in particular. One of them he stabbed to death, and the other one he buried alive. And when he was sure that the cat was dead, he dug it up, decapitated it, and put the cat's head on like a pole. Like, if you're familiar with the Jeffrey Dahmer case, when Jeffrey Dahmer was like killing the animals and everything, he would put the animal's head on like a stake. It was similar to that. Ed would also use his sisters, like little Barbie dolls, to act out some weird shit. Like, he would take the dolls and he would like rip the heads off of them, and he would also pose them in like some very bizarre, sexually suggestive positions, and he not that old, so I don't know where he learned that from, but that's neither here nor there. It's still weird. He also had this very strange obsession with the electric chair. He used to make his sisters play this game with him where they would like sit in a chair. He was the only person that was like, he would make them participate in the game, but he was the only one that was getting any enjoyment out of it. So he would sit in a chair. He would get his sisters to like tie his arms up, like strap him to the chair and everything, and then he would pretend to be electrocuted. It's the strangest thing. And it's the fact that he made his sisters like participate in his fantasy with him that makes it all the more strange. I mean, it's strange regardless, but that just makes it even worse somehow. So, of course, this did not go unnoticed. It did not go unnoticed at all, especially by Ed's mother, Carnell. And just like it would any other parent, that shit terrified her. She was terrified of her own son. So she would lock him in the basement at night, and she would also lock like all of the room doors in the house, like just in case he broke out or anything. And for some reason, she just had this fear that if she didn't lock him, excuse me, she just had this fear that if she did not lock him up in the basement at night, he would break out and cause harm to the family. Her particular fear was that he would rape his little sister. I don't know why I don't know why she would think that at such a young age for him. I'll say that. I don't know why she thought that, but that was her fear. So every night when everybody was going to bed, she would lock his ass up in that basement and just carry on with her normal bedtime routine. At the age of 13, Ed got fed up with being locked in the basement. He got tired of being treated like this outside child, and he was just tired. So he ran away from Montana, and he ended up getting to his father's house. And it's not that his father wasn't excited to see him. It's more so that his father got remarried, and he married a woman that had children. So now Ed was in competition with his new stepbrother for his father's affection, and this did not go well at all. It was just so awful, and it got so bad. It was acting out so bad to the point where his dad was like, "You got to go back to your mom's." No. I don't know what he was doing. I didn't get any clarity on what exactly he was doing to get sent back home, but whatever he was doing was bad enough for him to get sent back home. However, Ed would not be at his mom's house long at all. When he was 14, he was actually sent to North Fork, California to live with his paternal grandparents. And Ed was an abnormally large child. At the age of 14, he was 6'4". That is terrifying for a 14-year-old to be 6'4". He was just huge. And it's already bad enough that his mother was afraid of him, but I'm not sure how long he was with his dad, but imagine sending your child somewhere and they 14 years old, they about like 5'5", and they just go about their business, and they go for the summer, and they come back and they a whole foot taller. Like, she was even more terrified. So he was sent to live with his mom very briefly, and I'm not sure if she spoke, because he went with his paternal grandparents, so that's his dad's parents. So I'm not sure if they had like a little chat and he suggested that he move in with them or whatever the case may be, but that's where he got sent to. And his grandparents' names were Ed Sr. and Maud Kemper. And Ed and his grandmother Maud did not get along at all. They did not get along whatsoever. They were constantly arguing. It was just some bullshit every single day. And to make matters worse, Ed was bullied in school. Yeah, he was bullied in school because of how tall he was, which sounds very strange because usually you bully somebody because they too short. But bullying somebody because they too tall, that is insane. But he was definitely picked on a lot. I'm pretty sure they called him like Jolly Green Giant or some weird. Y'all know how kids are. Kids are just mean and rude. So they could have been saying a little bit of anything. But yeah, so his school life wasn't that great. Well, his social life at school wasn't that great. He was very smart. Please do not forget that. He was extremely smart. But he just wasn't having any luck at home, any luck at school, and it just wasn't looking too good for him. On August 27th, 1964, Ed would make two very important phone calls. The first phone call he made was to his mother, and the second phone call that he made was to the local police station. But both phone calls had the same message. Ed told both his mom and the police that he had murdered his grandparents. Now, we are not sure of how his grandmother was, well, we know how she was murdered. We're not sure of the events that transpired that led up to her being murdered. Some sources say that they got into an argument, and in the heat of the moment, that is when he just went ahead and attacked her. Other sources say that she was a writer. So other sources say that she was writing a children's book when Ed just out of nowhere just attacked her. But again, we're not sure which one. And after the details of this case, you can pretty much draw your own conclusions. But either way, it was a spur of the moment thing. Like, it wasn't some, I don't know. I'm gonna be for real, I don't know. But honestly, it could go either way. It really could. So I'll let you guys figure out how you wanna feel about that. Regardless, he shot his grandmother with a .22 caliber rifle. And when she was dead, she was just dead. So, to spare his grandfather the pain and suffering of seeing his wife dead, when he came home from the grocery store, Ed kind of like snuck up on him when he was attempting to bring the groceries inside, and he shot him in the back of the head, and he was instantly dead. So, following killing his grandfather is when he called his mother to tell his mother what he had done. And then after he called his mother, he called the police, told the police what he had done. And he actually went and sat outside on the porch and waited for the police to show up so that he could be arrested. So, following Ed being arrested for the murder of his grandparents, he was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic while he was at the, I don't know how to pronounce this, Atascadero, I'm assuming, that state hospital. And honestly, he thrived at this hospital. He really did. He did so well at this hospital that he ended up becoming kind of close with his psychiatrist, and he ended up becoming his assistant later on down the line. But he did really well. He responded well to his treatments and everything. He didn't, cause any problems. It's like he knew he needed to be there, so he just kind of acted accordingly. It is now December 18th of 1969, and it is Edmund's 21st birthday. And The psychiatric hospital that he was staying in decided to give him a very special gift, his release. The staff was not pleased. The psychiatrists that worked there, just the nurses, the cafeteria staff, baby, everybody that was there, they were like, no, do not release him. He needs to be here. He needs to stay here. But it was nothing that they could do about it. He was released into the care of his mother. That was it. That was it. It was nothing they could do about it. So at the time that he was released, Ed's mom was now living in Santa Cruz, California, and he ended up taking on a number of odd jobs before he eventually became a laborer for the state of California Public Works Department of Public Works. So he was working for them, and he also started to befriend a lot of the Santa Cruz police in the area. And he befriended them because he kind of wanted pointers, because he wanted to become a police officer himself. So that dream got shot down because there's a height requirement, and there's also a you too damn tall cap, and Ed had reached the you too damn tall cap. This man was 6'9". 6'9". He was 6'9" and he weighed 300 pounds. He needed to be on somebody's basketball court. He should not have been trying to be no police officer. Like imagine getting pulled over in traffic, and the cop that pull you over and get out the squad car is literally built like LeBron James. Literally. No. You absolutely do not need to be no damn police officer. So he, of course, was a little sad that he was unable to become... Hush, stomach. Of course, he was sad that he wasn't able to work his dream job. But, you know, he continued working as a laborer, and then laborer. And eventually he was able to save up enough money to move out of his mom's house. But one little thing about Ed was not that good with money. He was not good with money at all. He ended up being involved in a motorbike accident, and in the accident he received a settlement of $15,000. And once he got his settlement check, he went to the nearest dealership and he purchased a Ford Galaxy. It was a yellow Ford Galaxy. I'll see if I can find a picture so I can insert it. And because he was terrible with finances, unfortunately, well, he ended up getting an apartment and he had a roommate, but he was still bad with money. So I'm not sure if the roommate kicked him out because he wasn't able to cover his part of the rent, or if they both were bad with money and they ended up losing the apartment. I'm not exactly sure. So following Ed moving back in with his mother, I guess he hated being at the house with her. So he began to cruise the Pacific coast, looking to pick up female hitchhikers. And during this time, he was also getting a little murder bag together. Y'all know we're going to murder bag. Knives, plastic bags, handcuffs. It was terrible. And it was one instance, I think I remember I watched another person do a video on this, and I think I remember them saying that, I didn't see it in any of my sources, but Ed actually used his handcuffs to impersonate a police officer. And if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this because I might be thinking about somebody else. If I'm not mistaken, he used the handcuffs to pose as a police officer, and he ended up picking up someone. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was a boy. He picked someone up posing as a police officer, and he raped them, and the person ended up getting away, and they went to go and tell the police. I think it was him. They went to go and tell the police, and when they went to go and tell the police didn't believe them because they knew Ed. So he kind of got away with it. Like, they didn't even pick him up. They didn't question him or anything like that. Like, they were just like, get out of here. It wasn't Ed. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Edmund Kemper. Somebody fact check. Let me know down below. I could be wrong. So take that with a grain of salt. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Edmund Kemper that was involved in that. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was. But anyway, so it is May 27th of 1972, and Edmund picks up two 18-year-old college students who are hitchhiking back to campus. Their names are Mary Ann Pesky, I don't know how to pronounce it, and Anita Luchessa. And he stops, he gives them a ride, and he's just, kind of making them comfortable, just, chatting them up, asking them the same questions that your aunts and uncles ask you at Thanksgiving about school, things like that. And they are so into the conversation that they don't even notice that Ed is no longer taking them to campus. And by the time they realize it, it is too late. Ed takes the women to a secluded area where he manually strangles both women, and he also decapitates them and dismembers their bodies. On September 14th, 1972, Ed's murdering urge would come back, and unfortunately he would take his frustrations out on 15-year-old Aiko Ku. He attempted to strangle her, but was unsuccessful. I don't know how you unsuccessfully strangle somebody, but it did not work. Frustrated that he was unable to strangle her successfully, he then decided to rape her, and he strangled her with her own scarf. Post-mortem, he decided to perform some acts of necrophilia on her corpse, and he also dismembered her body and decapitated her. In addition to him decapitating her, he also cut off her hands. I don't know why, but he cut off her hands. On January 7th of 1973, Ed picked up another hitchhiker, Cindy Shaw. Same thing that he did with Marianne and Anita. He kind of like talked her up, made it seem like he was going to take her back to campus, but he did not. And she was shot in the head with a .22 caliber rifle, which is actually the same rifle that he used to murder his grandparents. He shot her with that rifle and did some of the same things that he did to everybody else. I don't have to go into it. On May 5th of 1973, he would do the exact same thing to 24-year-old Rosanna Thorpe and 23-year-old Allison Liu. And at this time, Ed was able to fly under the radar, not only because he was friends with the police in the area, but also because his crime spree happened at the same time of the crime spree of Herbert Mullen. So a lot of the murders that were being committed, they thought that it was him doing it, and boy were they wrong. On April 19th of 1973, Ed would commit his worst murder to date. As she was sleeping, he bludgeoned his mother to death with a claw hammer, and he was not done there. This next part is gonna get a little weird. If you're not trying to hear it, I would say fast forward maybe about 30-45 seconds, a minute and a half, something like that, but it's about to get weird. So he kills his mother, mutilates her body, cuts off her head, rips out her vocal cords, puts her vocal cords into the garbage disposal and turns it on. Then he goes back to her bedroom where he takes her head and sexually penetrates her head orally. And then I cannot believe these words are coming out of my mouth. And then he puts her head on a stool and uses it as target practice and throws darts at it. The hatred this man had for his mother is so insane. I also forgot to mention, because I did not know how to plug it in, but I know some of y'all were wondering, what did he do with the heads of his victims? First of all, he would murder his victims, and some of them he would bring them back home where he was living with his mother. But with the severed heads that he collected over the years, he would actually take their heads and bury them face up in his mother's garden. And his reasoning for doing that was because his mother always said that she wanted people to look up to her. So of course, as you can guess, this attack took hours. Like him dismembering her body and playing darts with it and doing everything that he was doing. It took hours. It took so long that one of his mother's friends ends up stopping by the house and interrupts Ed as he's doing what he's doing. So Ed decides to make her his next and final victim. She did not suffer as much as his mother did, though. She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, it couldn't have been worse timing on her part. She was manually strangled. She was strangled with Aiko Ku's scarf that Ed kept as a trophy. And she was also decapitated post-mortem. Following this, Ed just jumped into his car and left the scene of the crime. He just left. He ended up driving around, waiting, listening to the radio for someone to report the crimes that he had committed. And after about 4 days of driving, he didn't hear anything. So he pulls over at a payphone in Colorado, and he decides that he's going to turn himself in. So he calls, he's in Pueblo, Colorado. So he calls the Santa Cruz Police Department from the payphone in Colorado, and you know, they friends with him, they his buddies. So he's like, hey bud, got something to tell you. I committed this murder, and that murder. And they like, yeah, whatever. They're not believing him. So they think it's a prank call. They hang up the phone. So Ed calls back and he's like, hey, no, I'm serious. Like, I did this and this and this, and y'all need to go check it out. And they're like, okay, stop playing. Hang up the phone again. So after doing this a series of times, they eventually get the hint that he's not joking. So they go down to the house and they check everything out, and of course he was right. I just sat here and told you what happened. So they're like, oh, okay, this is bad. And he tells them exactly where he is so that they can come and pick him up. And he waits in Pueblo, Colorado until, I don't know who showed up, because I'm pretty sure Santa Cruz police did not drive from Santa Cruz all the way to Colorado. I'm pretty sure Colorado police showed up, arrested him, and then extradited him back to California for him to serve his crime, for him to be charged with his crimes. That's what I'm thinking happened. That makes the most sense. Regardless, somebody came and picked that ass up. So following his arrest, Ed decides that He is going to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. And that was very denied. Like, no, you were very aware of what you were doing. You knew what you were capable of. You 6'9". Be for real. Insanity is not gonna work here. So realizing the magnitude of what he's done, he's pretty aware that he's gonna get the death sentence. Like, he knows for a fact that he is going to be sentenced to death for the crimes that he committed. So he decides to put in a request. And I think y'all know where I'm going with this. Ed asks to be executed by electric chair. That was his request. He was like, yep, I did it, and this is how I want to die. He wanted to fulfill his lifelong dream of being executed by the electric chair. You could have stuck a fork in a socket years ago and got that fantasy taken care of. Like, but his request was also denied, which is strange to me because the man asked to die, let him die. But the reasoning why he was denied was because in the state of California, capital punishment was temporarily suspended. So Edmund Kemper is still alive to this day, serving life in prison. Yeah, he's still alive. And that kind of just puts things into for me personally, it kind of puts things into perspective because it's like, this man is still alive. I can't wrap my mind around that because, you know, like, Ted Bundy is dead, John Wayne Gacy is dead, and they committed their crimes around the same time, but Edmund Kemper's still alive. Even Charles Manson is dead. Is it just strange to me, or is it strange to y'all too? Because, well, Jeffrey Dahmer is dead, but he died differently. Like, every other serial killer that was committing crimes during this time is dead, but this man is still alive. That is so bizarre to me because everybody else dead. He's still alive. He is still alive. That is crazy. That is so crazy that this man is still alive. Maybe it's just weird to me. I don't know, because my grandmother is older than him and she is still alive. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Hey, baby, I'm filming.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just checking my bad.
Edmund Kemper is still alive. He's like 70-something years old. And if you hear my child in the background, please ignore him just like I'm doing because I'm not letting him in. He is currently serving out his life in prison without the possibility of parole sentence at the California medical facility in Vacaville, whichever one, California. He was evaluated several times when he was in prison, and he was found to have an IQ of 145. He also was given a test with a truth serum. Well, they conducted an interview with him after giving him a truth serum, and it is believed that he cooked and ate some of his victims. I don't know how true that is. That's what I saw. That's what I'm telling y'all. I mean, anybody that uses their mother's severed head as target practice is capable of anything. So, and you can't put nothing past nobody. So honestly, he probably did do it. We'll never know. But that is the very tragic case of Edmund Kemper, aka the co-ed killer. Do not forget to leave case suggestions down below, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.